Mm.
What do you believe policymakers and humanitarian organizations often misunderstand about living with a physical condition in conflict zones?
I don't think they misunderstand anything because they don't take it into account in the first place.
Hmm.
You see, um, physical disability or is not taken into account when making policies or responding to a crisis.
Hmm.
That's what I learned from my advocacy work over the years is that oftentimes when you present a report or when you talk to someone, they'll say, "Oh, we actually haven't considered people with disabilities
Hmm.
when planning this like assistive infrastructure or this crisis response building or whatever that is."
Hmm.
So they don't misunderstand anything because it's not taken into account in the first. And when and you're talking about physical disabilities that were present before the conflict, as is the case with me. I was born with a disability, but in a war zone, the probability of people acquiring disabilities gets much higher. So I so this when I first encountered this problem where every time we would talk to someone or I would hear other advocates or organizations talk about the fact that when they talk to humanitarian organizations they would be they would be responded to with or actually we haven't thought of people with disabilities. I'm just baffled all the time. It's like you do realize that the probability of someone acquiring disability, becoming disabled, is much higher when it's in a conflict zone. So I just thought of it is like my thought of it is like, how could they forget such a vital part of that? But that's where organizations for the fight for the rights of people with disabilities and advocates come
Hmm.
and fill in the gap of um, highlighting and mainstreaming that kind of issue because it is very much present,
Hmm.
and not even just that, not uh, and the issue is present because there's no data on it. Like there's no statistics on, or there wasn't for a very long time on how many people with disabilities live in this area of conflict. How many? There's no there's no segregation of data by there was no segregation of data by disability. So for a very long time, the issue of disability and conflict was virtually invisible. So there wasn't any worldwide action on any kind of conditions that come with disability. And I would presume that's not my personal experience, but I would presume that this is true for many health conditions that are chronic, um, because that they remain invisible because they are either not counted for or invisible in a way, or have like a super specific like a type of medication that is needed, which is usually not like in the first aid kit of organizations, which is very unfortunate. So yeah, so this has been what I've learned throughout the years. It it they could there's nothing missing because it wasn't visible in the first place.
That is great answer. And your journey across continents as a
Yeah.
young woman with cerebral palsy has inspired many. Can you tell us what support, whether it is medical, emotional, or social, do you wish had been more available during that time?
Throughout the conflict in my country, Syria, and during the journey in itself, I wished the terrain had been more accessible.
Mhm.
That's just the logistics and the practicality of making sure that it's easy for a person with disability to reach safety,
Mhm.
to go somewhere where they are safe. I wish there was a way for me to go into shelter where when there was a bombing. There wasn't. I'm lucky I had like stronger brothers who could carry me down 5 flights of stairs. And the lack of that option resulted in me being stuck in the fifth floor apartment. And I only went downstairs when we actually had to like evacuate, like we actually became internally displaced and were like booked a bus and my brother carried me down so that we when we left Aleppo permanently. So prior to that, if there was a bombing, all of us had to stay inside because I was there and everyone knew that I couldn't like go down. So everyone was basically there to be with me and be a guard because there was no option for others to go while I was still upstairs. Which had a very heavy psychological toll on me. Like I felt this was there is no way of sugarcoating this because I knew that because of me the chances of them um, being injured
Mhm.
or getting killed was higher. And maybe this was the first time in my life where having a disability became dangerous, not just disadvantageous. So,
And who inspired you to speak up, and how can advocates ensure more disabled voices are heard, especially from underrepresented or conflict-affected regions?
um, I think that what inspired me to speak about it was I felt like I was in a position to do it because I knew English, so there was no need for interpretation.
I'm honored to be the one speaking on behalf of Syrians and people with disability. I mean, how many 20-year-olds end up in the Security Council?
I now give the floor to Ms. Nujeen Mustafa, please.
My name is Nujeen Mustafa. I'm 20 years old, a Kurdish girl from Aleppo, Syria. I have cerebral palsy and use a wheelchair to move around. What I hope to accomplish is to make the decision makers realize that behind all these figures and reports that they read, there are humans who are suffering and that every decision they make affects them. Every day we would hear of relatives and acquaintances who had been killed. Every day buildings in our neighborhood would be bombed. Every day I feared that I would be the reason my family was 1 or 2 seconds too late. The structure of supports that people with disabilities rely on is broken down in conflict. You need to address the needs of people with disabilities, particularly women. This is not a favor. This is not a charity. This is our right. To be the first woman with a disability to brief the Security Council just feels so surreal to me. Because it's something that I'd never expected in my whole life, and hopefully the session will encourage the Security Council to take action and ensure that people with disabilities are no longer at a disadvantage just because they are different.
There was no language barrier that kind of um, would cause a delay or a misunderstanding in the meaning. I felt like the opportunity afforded to me as someone who garnered a lot of media attention when I arrived in Germany was necessitated for me to kind of do that kind of work because somebody has to do it. I felt like I was lucky and I have the chance, so I should use it um, to kind of talk about um, or advocate for people with disabilities and refugees in general. Um, so, and I think that was more out of the support of my family as well, and the fact that as I was growing up, was given a lot of confidence and encouragement. to be out there and I guess not hide uh, in that way. I think I just felt like I was afforded a wonderful opportunity to do something that I hoped would be impactful, so I took it. And hopefully I was successful in making some kind of impact. So yeah, and what organizations could do, I think, in that regard is maybe have events or conferences take place in these regions that are impacted, or and not have it be like in the US or in Europe where you would like need a visa, or where you would need like a passport, or because there are so many hurdles. There's so much bureaucracy in that way, in the way of getting the testimony from people who are affected,
Mhm.
and allow space for people to express or talk about their experiences in their mother tongue.
Mhm.
Have a lot of more opportunities for immediate translation. So I'm just like I'm hoping every organization would have like this UN immediate translation thing where you just switch on a channel and have it like directly translated into the language that you know. So I think not having having these conferences and important conversation move to places where that are accessible to victims and people who are impacted is would make a huge difference, because there would be no visa, no no passports, no bureaucracy standing in the way of um, like people who are impacted making their voice heard. And I mean, one of the reasons why I get so many opportunities to speak to the public and participate in various different conferences and events is because I live in Germany, which is
Mhm.
accessible to, which would be easier than living in Yemen or Iraq or Palestine or wherever the conflict is actually taking place.
Mhm.
So while I am grateful for all of these opportunities, I would I would love for more voices to join the conversation and for more advocates for the rights of refugees and people with disabilities to be present
Mhm.
in these conferences. So yeah, um, so basically more the way to make it more accessible or affordable for people who are actually impacted is just to move it somewhere where they can access,
Mhm.
and to make it easier for them to give testimony in in a language where they are comfortable and can express themselves more freely.
That is an outstanding answer. Now, let's talk about your book. Your
Yes.
book details 3,500-mile journey from Syria to Germany.
Yes.
Looking back, what moment stands out as a turning point in how you saw yourself, not just as a refugee, but as a young woman with a voice?
Um, I think the moment that stand out is the when I did my interview with the BBC. I think that was the first one I did. Because there were it was kind of lots of factors were in there, and it was spontaneously the moment where also my view of me being a refugee change, or I guess crystallized itself. Just to note that there will be a few terms that come up.
So you're in the picture. The term FSA stands for Free Syrian Army, which is which stands for the army soldiers that have accepted from the regime and actually essentially became free and stood with the protesters at the time, and from their own rebel group. Few names are Farhad, Shiar, and Jamila. They are all my siblings, and the terms Yaba and Aye is what we call my mom and dad in Kurdish. Yaba is my dad, and Aye is my mom. If I forget any one of them in the passage, I will explain it afterwards. And also, there's the term Syria, which is the name of my pet tortoise in Aleppo. Okay. Can birds sense the bombing coming? It felt like it. Birds would stop singing, and the air would cut and still, as the time had stopped. Then came the bombing, as the planes flew over again and again. Once I saw a documentary that said honeybees can be trained to sniff out explosives. How weird is that? When the raid started, people would rush to basement shelters, but of course, I couldn't. My family wouldn't leave me, so we all sat there on the 5th floor.
More clearly, and the moment where I thought this could have like far-reaching consequences on me personally and on the impact that I could have in the future, because when I got into the BBC crew, I was stuck in the border between Hungary and Croatia, and if I don't know if you're aware, but there was a barbed wire fence, blocking refugees from entering Hungary. And that was the moment I realized that they think of us as a problem, they as an issue that needs solving. We need to get rid of these people or this problem or this issue, and we actually don't want them here. Uh, we don't even want them here. We don't even want them to be on our soil. So so and in that moment where I spoke, and I was just excited at the time, and I didn't think about it. But looking back on it now, I was just excited to use my English finally after so many years of not having many speakers to practice with. Um, Looking back on it, I think it was a turning moment in how I viewed my role or what it could be in the future, and how I viewed our situation in general, that refugees are seen as a problem, as an like a global issue that needs solving, not as people who are escaping the impossible, or not as someone who is in need of help, but as a problem that nobody wants to deal with. So I would say that this was a turning point. Up until then, there were lots of different changes. You know, ever since I stepped foot in Greece, where I was the only one speaking English, and I felt like I was finally useful. I was the person that everybody else was relying on. But I think from fr- from then on, from that interview, I thought my role had changed, or maybe I could do something with this platform that I was given. So yeah,